Good day everyone! Welcome to our channel. For today's video, we will discuss about the topic entitled The Decline of the Roman World. But before that, here are the subtopics. First, the Roman Empire declines. Second, many factors caused the decline of Rome. And third, Christianity spreads throughout the empire.
Here are some posted questions that you can answer at the end of this topic. First, what crisis did the Roman Empire face in the 3rd century AD? Second, what were the signs that many Romans had lost confidence in the empire? And third, how did Christianity come to be accepted in the empire?
Way back then, before the Roman Empire declines, the Pax Romana had brought the ancient world 200 years of peace, ruled by law and civilized life. The Roman system of government endured during the reigns of both able and incompetent rulers. But when Emperor Commodus began his reign late in the 2nd century AD, the empire was facing serious problems in many areas.
Here are the other topics under the subtopic of the Roman Empire declines. First, war and unrest weaken the empire. Second, strong emperors make reforms. Third, the empire is divided. Fourth, Germanic tribes move into the empire. And the last, Rome falls to barbarian rulers. Number 1. War and unrest weaken the empire. The 3rd century AD found the Roman Empire facing serious crises and without strong leadership to overcome them. The discipline and loyalty of the army broke down as men enlisted simply to gain weapons and spoil. Soldiers were loyal to their commanders rather than Rome, and military leaders fought one another for the throne. One general after another became emperor, but none ruled for more than a few years. Nearly all these emperors were assassinated. As troops were called back from the frontier to fight in the clashes between rival military leaders, the empire's border defense were weakened. Germanic tribes from northern Europe crossed the Roman frontier along the Rhine and the Danube rivers.
Number 2. Strong emperors make reforms. In AD 284, the army elected Diocletian emperor. He and his successor Constantine, reigned 306 to 337, tried to save the empire by imposing strong one-man rule. They made drastic changes which resulted in Rome's becoming a tightly controlled state. The changes worsened the plight of farmers and townspeople alike. To ensure a supply of food, the imperial government forced farmers to stay on their land. Government agents hunted down those who tried to leave their farms. Government workers and artisans also had to keep their jobs for life and pass them on their children. To support the army, his luxurious court, and the officials of the imperial government, Diocletian imposed high taxes. Town officials had to serve as tax collectors for life, paying the difference between the taxes the state demanded and the amount they could collect. Artisans and merchants, as well as the city officials, were ruined financially, and city life declined even more. Number 3. The empire is divided. To make the emperor easier to govern, Diocletian appointed loyal generals as co-rulers in the western regions. He moved the imperial court to Asia Minor and ruled there. The split between the two parts of the empire grew wider and rival rulers fought for power. In 3030, the Emperor Constantine built a new imperial capital at Constantinople, overlooking the waterway where Europe and Asia meet. The division of the empire soon became accepted fact. The shift of power to the east had serious consequences. The Western Empire was already weak economically, yet it had to pay for the troops and border defenses to keep out the Germanic tribes. With the split of the empire, the West could no longer depend on financial and military help from the wealthier eastern regions. The reform of Diocletian and Constantine restored order, but the cost to Roman citizens was heavy. This emperor, moreover, did not solve Rome's problems, but merely delayed the collapse of the empire.
Germanic tribes moved into the empire. The Germanic people who lives in the forests and marshes of northern Europe were a continuing problem for the Romans. They were organized in tribes rather than states. They had no written laws, written literature, or philosophy, and so the Romans looked on them as uncivilized barbarians. The warmer climate, rich farmland, and wealth of the Roman lands attracted the Germanic tribes. They settled along the Rhine and Danube rivers, and only the troops along the frontier kept them from cruising into Roman territory.
Late in the 4th century, Danube Plain was invaded by Huns, a fierce nomadic people from Central Asia. Terrified of the Huns, a Germanic tribe called Visigoths asked for refuge within the Roman Empire. 2 years later, Rome was at war with its unwelcome guest. In the Battle of Adrianople, the Visigoth cavalry defeated the Roman army. This was a clear sign that Rome could no longer defend its borders. As more soldiers were called home to defend Italy, the border defenses soon collapsed. Germanic tribes began pouring into the empire. Some moved into Gaul, others into Spain. The Visigoth leader, Alaric, led his troops into Italy, demanding land and a generalship in the Roman army. When his demands were refused, the Visigoth attacks and loot the city of Rome in 410. To make peace, Rome allowed them to set up a kingdom in Spain in Gaul. The Huns now threatened the Western Roman Empire. In 451, their king Athala led his forces into Gaul. An alliance of Germanic tribes and the remnants of the Roman army defeated Athala. Number 5. Rome falls to barbarian rulers. In 455, the city of Rome was again looted, this time by the Vandals, a Germanic tribe that had established a kingdom in North Africa. The Vandals are less civilized compared than the Goths, caused such destruction, and for your information, this is where the word vandalism came from, as a reminder of the reputation they gained. In AD 476, some of these Germanic officers overthrew the Western Roman Emperor Romulus Augustulus. They declared a fellow German Odoacer king of Italy. This event is traditionally regarded as the end of the Roman Empire in the West. Odoacer was killed in 493 by Theodoric, king of the Ostrogoths or East Goths, supported by the Eastern Roman Emperor. Theodoric restored peace and prosperity in Italy, reigning until 526.
There are many factors caused the decline of Rome. First, Rome loses its citizens' confidence and loyalty. The army deteriorates. The population declines. The empire weak economically, and the Roman cities decline. Rome loses its citizens' confidence and loyalty. In the 3rd and 4th centuries, many Romans lost confidence in the values of their civilization and in the empire itself. Little creative or original work was done in art and literature. Seeking only their own security, nobles fled to their country states, the Latifondia, and fortified them against the threat of invasion. The threat of Germanic invasion forced emperors to spend more and more money on defense, to pay for the food, weapons, and armor needed by soldiers. The state increased taxes, seized grain, and property from citizens, and force people to repair roads and bridges and do other works.
The population declines. As the empire declined, its population grew smaller. From 70 million people during the Pax Romana, the empire's population fell to 50 million by the late 4th century. Population loss hurt the empire in several ways. First, a smaller number of taxpayers had to bear the increasing cost of running the empire. Second, fewer people were available to farm the land, and there were famines and food shortages. The smaller population added to the problems of finding soldiers for the army. The empire is weak economically. Although Roman towns were centers of commercial and cultural life, they did not develop enough industries to provide jobs for the common people. The widespread use of slave labor discouraged both economic growth and new developments in technology.
Roman cities also declined. The economic and social problems had the most serious effect in the cities. Romans who had fled to the Latifonia produced their own food and goods. They no longer looked to the cities for any of their needs. Moreover, the power of the government did not extend to these country states. Political power passed, therefore, from the central government to the land-owning nobles. The agricultural workers on the Latifonia were no longer independent farmers. They had to remain on the land they farmed but did not own. Christianity spreads throughout the empire. At the same time that the Roman Empire began to decline, a new religion, Christianity, was gaining followers in the Mediterranean world. By that time, the empire came to an end. The new teaching had become the official religion throughout the vast territories that had been ruled by Rome. When Christianity spreads throughout the empire allows religious beliefs. Many Jews hope for a Messiah. Jesus lives and teaches in Palestine. Christianity attracts new followers. Paul travels as a Christian missionary. Christianity spread within the empire. Christians are persecuted. Christianity is accepted in the empire. Christian thinkers describe their goals and beliefs.
The empire allows different religious beliefs. While the Romans brought their laws and government authority to all parts of the empire, they allowed local peoples to keep many of their own religious customs. Romans themselves followed a number of different religions and tolerated and respected the local beliefs in the provinces. Many Jews hoped for a Messiah. The Romans established a line of Jewish king named Herod on the throne of Judea. The Roman officials and soldiers also occupied the country. Many Jews hoped to regain their independence. Some hoped for the coming of Messiah or Savior that had been promised by the Old Testament's prophets.
Jesus lives and teaches in Palestine. Early in the 1st century AD, a teacher named Jesus gained a following among the people of Judea. The account of Jesus' preaching appears in the Gospels, the first book of the New Testament in the Christian Bible. His teaching and events of his life were preserved by word of mouth, and they're recorded by 4 writers: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. In about AD 30, Jesus traveled to Jerusalem to celebrate the Jewish holiday of Passover. Crowds that gathered there welcomed him as King of the Jews and Messiah. Jesus' popularity appeared threatening to both the traditional Jewish leaders and the Roman authorities. He was arrested and brought before the Roman governor, Pontius Pilate, who ordered his death by crucifixion, the usual Roman form of execution.
Christianity attracts new followers. At the time of the crucifixion, the followers of Jesus made up only a small Jewish sect. They believed Jesus was the Son of God and that had risen from the dead and later been taken to heaven. The disciples believed that they had a responsibility to spread Jesus' teachings to other people. The new beliefs attracted more followers. Christianity, the religion based on Jesus' teachings, spread throughout the Mediterranean world. Paul travels as a Christian missionary. One of the reasons for the spread of Christianity outside the Near East was the work of a Greek-speaking Jew named Saul from the city of Tarsus in Asia Minor. Taking the new name Paul, he became a missionary and traveled to many parts of the Roman Empire to spread the teachings of Jesus to both Jews and non-Jews. Paul also set forth doctrines that are the basis of Christianity. He taught that all human beings are born sinful because Adam and Eve disobeyed God, but that Jesus was sent by God to redeem humanity from their sins. By dying on the cross, said Paul, Jesus had made it possible for human beings to gain salvation and enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, he taught any man or woman, rich or poor, Jew or non-Jew, could gain salvation through faith in Christ and believe in his teachings and his mission. Christianity spreads within the empire. The peace and unity of the Pax Romana made it easier for Paul and other missionaries to carry the message of Christianity throughout the Roman Empire. As a Roman citizen, Paul had certain privileges and protection anywhere in the empire.
As the new religion grew, the Christian Church emerged as a strong organization. Calling its members brothers and sisters, the Church gave people a sense of community and fellowship. Christians are persecuted. Roman authorities did not at first interfere with Christianity, as more and more people turned to Christianity. However, the Roman officials began to see it as a threat to their rule. The Christians did not accept the Roman gods or celebrate their festivals. Although they obeyed Roman law, they refused to worship the emperor as a god, which was seen as an act of disloyalty to Rome.
Christianity is accepted in the empire. The invasion and unrest of the 3rd century AD brought more converts and new strength to the Christian Church. The persecution ceased, and Christianity became one of the main religions allowed in the empire. Roman Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity, becoming the first Christian emperor. Christian thinkers describe their goals and beliefs. As the Christian Church grew, many writers and thinkers explained its doctrines and set forth principles for the following Christianity. These early Christian thinkers are usually called Fathers of the Church. One of the earliest and greatest church fathers was Augustine, AD 354 to 430, born in North Africa. Augustine studied Latin literature and philosophy in Carthage. After converting to Christianity, he became a bishop in Roman Africa. Augustine believed that the aim of life was the fulfillment of God's will. This contrast of the earthly sinful city and the perfect city of God remained an important idea for later Christian thinkers.
Now, let's answer the following check-up questions. First, what crisis did the Roman Empire face in the 3rd century AD? How was Rome's economy affected by this crisis?
A series of crises severely weakened the Roman Empire. Civil wars raged as rival military leaders fought for the imperial throne. Germanic tribesmen crossed the Rhine in the Danube River and invaded several areas in the empire. The Germanic attacks disrupted the economy and caused people to flee from cities.
Second, what steps did Diocletian take to save the empire from collapsing? What were the consequences of dividing the Roman Empire? Where was the capital moved?
Diocletian appointed loyal generals as co-rulers in the western regions. He moved the imperial court to the Asia Minor and ruled from there. The split between the two parts of the empire grew wider and rival rulers fought for power. The capital was moved at Constantinople.
Third, what were the signs that many Romans had lost confidence in the empire? How did the government itself make the situation worse?
Many Romans lost confidence in the values of their civilization and in the empire itself. Little creative or original work was done in art and literature. The upper classes in the cities no longer felt a responsibility to serve the empire or preserve their civilization and its values. Seeking only their own security, nobles fled to their country states, the latifondia, and fortified them against the threat of invasion. The government itself contributed to this decline of spirit. The threat of invasion forced emperors to spend more and more money on defense to pay for the food, weapons, and armor needed by soldiers. The state increased taxes, seized grain and property from citizens, and forced people to repair roads and bridges and do other work. These demands ruined both the prosperous townspeople and the small farmers. Many of them came to hate and fear the imperial officials more than they did the Germanic invaders. Overburdened by taxes and forced labor, townspeople avoided public service and did little to organize resistance against the Germanic invaders. The majority of Roman citizens became indifferent to the fate of Rome.
Fourth, what factors brought about a drop in population? What were the effects of the decline in population?
As the empire declined, its population grew smaller. From 70 million people during the Pax Romana, the empire's population fell to 50 million from the late 4th century. The effects of the decline in population are, first, a smaller number of taxpayers had to bear the increasing cost of running the empire. Second, fewer people were available to farm the land, and there were famines and food shortages. Third, the smaller population added to the problems of finding soldiers for the army.
Fifth, how did Christianity come to be accepted in the empire?
Christianity come to be accepted in the empire is it because of the Roman emperor named Constantine, who becoming the first Christian emperor. He issued a law allowing Christians to practice the religion freely and became a strong supporter of the church.
6. Who was Augustine? What did he believe should be the aims of Christian's life?
Augustine is one of the earliest and greatest church fathers. He was born in North Africa and studied Latin and philosophy in Carthage. He became a bishop in Roman Africa. He believed that the aim of life was the fulfillment of God's will. His contrast of the earthly sinful city and the perfect city of God remain an important idea for later Christian thinkers. Here are the references that we used.
We are the presenters, Delma Artiza Daero,
Gilshira Garcia Manapat
from BSN second year students, major in social studies, saying, we can do this para sa bayan at sa kinabukasan. Thank you for watching.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe and hit the notification bell for more update videos.